everybody, it's Denise Lockwood. I own the Racine County News website. We're really happy you're here, and we just had elections, so what are we doing now?
Hey,
It's only a couple of days afterwards, but we've got another round for you. We're on round two.
we're on round 2. So,
Heather Asiyanbi.
yes, hi everyone. Sorry, I should have said that. So what we're doing is we are doing another series of Coffee with Candidates. This time with our Racine County Executive candidates. There are 4 people running to lead the county. Today, our conversation is with Racine County Clerk Wendy Christensen, who is our first victim. Guest. But
We're not that bad.
She knows. We've known Wendy for I don't know. It feels like 100 years, right? We've known each other for a long time.
Recall elections.
Recall elections and
recounts and
all the things.
Local stuff before that.
All the things,
right?
But
why are we having a Racine County Executive election?
So, unfortunately, Jonathan Delagrave passed away unexpectedly this summer. I think from everything that people have commented on our Facebook page and we've talked to personally, Jonathan was one of the good guys, and his absence is so deeply felt. His leadership was unique because he was so caring. And I'm not saying other leaders don't care, but he was
a bridge builder.
He really was a bridge builder. Yeah. So unfortunately, we have to have a special election for a new county executive. And so welcome, Wendy. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity. This is the first time I've done sort of a discussion like this.
That's painless.
You know us. We're easy peasy.
Yeah.
Okay. So first question. We're just going to dive on in. So the Racine County budget is, thank you for that. We have our questions already here.
We need
bigger font.
We're old.
I even have on my bifocals. This is crazy. Okay, so the Racine County budget is facing a significant shortfall, which was part of the reason why they passed the sales tax, to kind of shore it up and then build on, right? There is a heavy reliance on personnel costs. So which specific programs or departments would you prioritize for funding, and where might you consider cutting back?
Well, one of my things that I care about, and I know Jonathan and many of our other county leaders, as well as local leaders do, is obviously public safety. If people don't feel safe, they don't want to come out and be part of the community, go shop, go for dinner, sometimes go to work or school.
Right.
So obviously that is one of our priorities, and there's a lot of services that we provide at the county level. I mean, we don't make things, we provide services. So that's why our budget is so heavily towards personnel, because that's really what we provide as people. Now, I can't say that there's a specific department or area that I'm saying we need to cut, we need to cut this or we need to cut that, but I think everything needs to be looked at. Obviously, we're sort of moved the ball a little bit from where we were. We're not facing that $17 million shortfall, which is where we started. And the thought is that now that the sales tax ordinance adopted by the county board will bring in an additional source of revenue, I don't feel that that's necessarily going to take care of everything moving forward. I think we just kind of moved that cliff a little further out.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so we just heard a car squealing, and in our experience, a car squeal is quickly followed by a
yeah.
That didn't happen, but that's why we all look this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, I think those financial implications have been moved a little bit, which gives us maybe a little bit of breathing room.
Okay.
But I can't say that anything's off the table. I have read through parts of the budget book. I'm familiar with parts, based on the budgets that I have to put together for my own departments, and have sat through budget meetings. I've watched some of the other budget meetings. I think we have to continue to look at everything. We're efficient in what we do, but are we also doing things that maybe we're not required to do? Not that they're bad, not that we've got bad programs, but are we duplicating anything that perhaps could be done by another level of government, another agency? I also think there are things that we need to work with our legislators about for, and again, I think I talked with Denise about this when we chatted before, things like court security. That is something that's really supposed to be a responsibility of the state, but the state isn't necessarily paying what those true costs are.
Okay.
And I know that particular item is something that the Wisconsin Counties Association is also kind of embraced as part of their platform on some legislation they would like to see changed, because it's not just Racine County that's being affected, it's counties across the state. So again, I think there isn't a one size fits all, and there isn't a one magic pen or magic, oh, if we just pluck this out, we'll be good.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, municipal budgets and county budgets are kind of one of those sticky wickets. If you pull one thing from one area, another department may feel the ramifications of that. So you do have to be very careful with that. So, but can we kind of like back up a little bit and talk a little bit about your experience? And, one of the things that we oftentimes will talk a lot more about is what kind of expertise do you bring to the table that is maybe different than some of the other people that are candidates for the position?
I think some of it has to do with my historical experience. I've been on municipal, at the municipal level and at the county level. I served as the administrator in Caledonia, granted a long time ago, when we had a vacancy there. And there are all kinds of aspects of the role that you have to work with. Whether it's working with personnel, it's putting budgets together. Some of it's administrative. You're signing a contract, but you're also talking with legislators. You're talking with board members. Again, you talked about building those relationships. I'm familiar with people in the community. I know our municipal clerks. I know some of the people that are on local boards in the various different municipalities, and all those experiences and the many years in public service sort of brought me to this point, I guess.
So, since we did just have an election 2 days ago, I just briefly wanted veer a little bit, zigzag into your role as the county clerk. Can you just explain briefly to people what happens between when the polls close and when results are considered official?
Well, first, once the polls close, there are some closing activities that actually take place at the polling location. The poll workers are balancing their poll books. They're checking the numbers of voters against the number of ballots cast, the results from the tabulator machines that people were feeding their ballots in. Those get transmitted to the county. And then there are some activities. We do some checking of numbers, and we've got calls from clerks saying, we have them call in and let us know how many ballots cast. We're now checking a couple different races that were on their ballots. So we're checking numbers before we actually would include a set of results out in a report. And we do try and put them out periodically. Obviously, November's a bigger turnout, so it takes a little longer to get everything in, and it takes longer to get those final results out. So we're doing some of those behind the scenes things. The next day, all the materials get delivered to the courthouse from the municipalities. They bring in all the ballots, a set of the poll books, a lot of the forms that we do, and that's all gone through. We check everything in. We're checking, if they tell us that you've been through recount, so you've seen some of the things that we look at, are things signed? If they tell us they have 3 ballot bags, what are the 3 ballot bags? What's the seal numbers on them? So we have all of those materials in a good orderly fashion. So when, in our instance, the County Board of Canvass will meet this coming Tuesday, and we will go through the results and
from each municipality,
from each reporting unit.
Oh, so every polling location. Okay.
Right. So we're comparing those. My team goes through the tapes and compares them to the initial reports, and then we have to enter anything that's federal or state office, which is most of the November election, into the state's canvass system, and we have to verify those numbers.
Okay.
So, and then we report that to the state, and then there's a state canvass.
Okay. So the reason why I wanted to ask that is because we've gotten a lot of comments on the Racine County Facebook page about, you know, voter fraud, election fraud, and things like that. And we have been telling people in writing and when we speak to them in person that you can have confidence in our elections because the people who run our local elections are people of integrity. There's a series of checks and balances. There's a process and a procedure for every step of the election process. And so I just really wanted to reiterate that this election was a free, fair,
Right.
you know,
And unfortunately, just that phrase, voter fraud, could cover so many things that you really
Right.
have to break down. Well, what are you really asking about? Or was this something you read? And sometimes what people are asking isn't even something they read that happened in Wisconsin.
right.
It happened elsewhere, and there's a
Yeah.
whole different type of process or different equipment or,
Right. Right. Same.
Yep.
Yes, but that's why I wanted to ask the question. So thank
Yep.
you for
You're
indulging
welcome.
me. Okay.
So kind of getting back to the county and how it's run, significant portion of the budget is spent not only on public safety, but also health and human services.
Mhm.
You know, how would you, especially with potential for federal and state funding being fluctuating, how would you kind of manage that process? Because of, you still have some things you have to do and some things you want to do, but how would you kind of prioritize some of those things?
I guess we have to look at again, are we duplicating anything? Are we capturing, perhaps grant money? I know they did in some of our budget meetings about the funding for some of those programs through human services is more heavily grant funded, so they don't have as much on the tax levy as perhaps other departments. But again, are we doing more than we really need to be doing? Are we able to combine costs, across multiple grants for a particular program? And I'm sorry, I don't have a particular program I can say, well,
okay.
it's
Yeah.
this particular
It's a good
thing.
example, though.
Yeah. And again, that would be something obviously I need to learn more about. And I think not just myself, but any of the candidates, because even if you have a good understanding of a lot of areas of the county, you're not necessarily involved in every specific operation or program that exists. You sort of have a broader view.
Sure. Right. So let's move into economic development.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
Appreciate you.
Yes. We're old. Eyesight goes.
I mean, it is what it is. What specific strategies would you implement to stimulate economic growth in Racine County, particularly when it comes to small businesses, either helping people start or supporting existing small businesses, and most especially for underserved communities, like Black and brown neighborhoods, basically?
Okay, a couple different things. I like the idea. We do need to be promoting our small businesses. It's great that we have large manufacturers as well. I think we need jobs for people to want to stay in our community. We utilize those agencies that we work with now that work with small businesses, like RAMAC, like RCEDC. They are a partner with Racine County and with small businesses, with financial institutions. They're a great resource. Again, I think we continue to support them, and they help our community grow. We want businesses to be able to succeed here. We don't want them to close and leave.
Right.
We want to attract. And again, some of that goes, I think you need to have a safe community. That's where a small business might want to move in to a certain area of the county, as opposed to, you look at tax rates. Again, we don't have control over municipal tax rates,
Right.
but through all of those agencies, we are able to build that coalition and have a resource to expand.
Yeah, and you saw that happen a lot with Foxconn too, and also with Microsoft as well, with regards to how the TIF district worked and the kind of the infrastructure and the financing. That was a lot.
It's a lot, and it's
Still
expensive, but it's also put us on the map for companies to want to look to move here and to build here. If we would not have proceeded with the project of Foxconn, regardless of where that project is now versus where we thought it might be, that spearheaded other development. Microsoft would not have come here if it had not been for that infrastructure that was already in place and ready to go because of the Foxconn development. Now, to the underserved communities, some of that has to do with, I think we need to have, I'm going to call it a pipeline, maybe that's not the right phrase or terminology, but we want children to be learning to be able to move on from school to jobs. I mean, we need to continue to work with our school systems and our businesses to sort of create that pipeline.
What is the county's role in doing that?
Again, I think you build those coalitions.
Okay.
The county does not everyone understands that the county doesn't oversee individual school systems. Right. So it's not like the county executive is going to go in and say, oh, Racine Unified or Burlington Area School District, you have to do this.
Right.
They have their own elected boards and their elected bodies. But again, if you can build those relationships and talk to them, perhaps what might be needed in Racine Unified or what they would like to partner with the county on, if there's some, again, resource that we can assist them with,
right,
as opposed, that might be different for Racine Unified as it would be for a Little Dover school.
Yeah.
So, but again, to have the people that have the skills to move into the jobs is important. We have workforce development. Again, that works with.
It's huge.
Right.
Yeah, and they do a really fabulous job. I don't know.
I mean, I had to utilize workforce development services back in 2008, right? I was laid off from my job because of the recession. And I went in and I forget the gentleman's name, but he took my resume and a 10-minute conversation he had with me and turned it into something. I was like, who is this person on paper? Oh my God, she's amazing. And he was like, that is you. And I was like, okay. He really was so helpful, and I literally just walked in off the street and was like,
I don't know where to
their
start.
Career services, right? I didn't know where to start.
I think that is one of the most unsung heroes of the county is that how much work gets done around workforce development.
Yeah.
Even my sister just moved here probably in February. She was thinking she wanted to get something with Microsoft because she's an IT person. And so she's been working with Workforce Solutions. And at the end of the day, they've been able to help a lot with reskilling. And I think that's a really big trend because you've got a lot of transition from heavy manufacturing to more IT type jobs. And so what is the potential role of county government in helping people transition?
And again, that's kind of through our workforce development. I think even manufacturing in and of itself is more technologically heavy than it used to be. It isn't, even our manufacturing companies aren't, thinking back decades ago, they're not standing watching a line of cans go by. That's all automated.
Right.
So you need to have, again, the people that have the knowledge and the understanding on how to run the machines.
Yeah. So let's talk about infrastructure and environment. So we all know the county, communities across the country have crumbling infrastructure. Roads and bridges need attention, right? It just is what it is. So with Racine County's infrastructure needs, planned roundabouts, facility upgrades, as the county executive, how would you address any environmental
ramps and things like that? That was something that was in place for a couple of years. I think there's a window replacement that will be upcoming. Yeah. So again, there are plans to do some of this, and then you sort of have to, once in a while, there's we've had a couple times where you've had some flooding in a building or
Right.
something. So you have to, be able to respond, I
Mhm.
guess would be the best way to put that.
Right.
Some of the things that we're doing, there's also, I'm trying to think of some of the things that I've even seen in the courthouse. They're switching out the lighting fixtures. They're
LED
going,
lights?
yep, we're going
Yeah,
to
for more efficiency.
more efficiency. I like it. It's a little brighter. Like you said, our eyes are a little bit older. So, I think it makes it a little brighter in the building, but it
Yeah.
also saves energy costs.
Yeah.
So again, being mindful of how we use those tax dollars, and when we make these changes, are we, long range? Are we doing something that's better?
Yeah, and one of the things that you were talking about earlier, and I kind of want to go back to this because there's one of the things that Jonathan really championed was around mental health and really seeing trauma-informed care as the model for how we help people not get in trouble versus like having kids just housed in a detention center. That's the whole purpose of the new building, which is just by my house.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's about right around the corner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's over on 3 Mile. And that's going to be opening soon. So, like, how would you view the, like, when it comes to mental health, what role does the county take? Because you've got a Chapter 51 law that says if you're a threat to yourself or others, what would your perspective be in the role of county government?
I think we have sort of taken a more holistic wraparound approach, a little bit proactive. Do some messaging to people that there is help available. Hopefully people don't wait until they're at their wit's end or thinking of something drastic that couldn't be changed. There's always hope. There's always somebody there to help. And again, children that have seen horrific things or experienced horrific things, we want them to have a more positive future.
So I think a lot of people, even because we will preach all day long about local government. That's the level of government that has the most direct impact on your day-to-day life, right? Denise and I, we will say that until we're blue in the face and beyond. But a lot of people still feel disconnected. So as the county executive, how do you bridge that gap between what the county's doing and helping connect people to county government?
Not quite understanding the piece of where you're seeing the gap. What are people asking
feel
about?
disconnected about government. They feel
Just saying-
disconnected from their government.
Okay.
They feel disconnected from the decisions that are made either
They don't trust government.
they don't trust
You
government.
hear that a lot.
Yeah, they don't
Okay.
trust the government, and as a result, they distance themselves, right?
Okay.
So they either feel like their voices aren't being heard at city hall or village board, or village hall rather. So city hall, village hall, whatever, they just don't feel like their voices are being heard. And I think to a lot of people, county government is a mystery, right? Like they don't really understand what your role is.
Okay.
Like,
because we're not their little town board,
right.
Yes.
and we're not the federal government. So
And we're
what
not
do you guys
state.
do?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
that makes sense.
So how as the county executive can you create a greater feeling of community and connection? How do we do that?
Messaging.
Okay.
We share what we share more perhaps about the services that we provide.
Mhm.
And how, now I'm thinking outside the box. We have a directory online. We have a website. We do have a communications person that helps put out media releases and things. We've got a great performance and analytics area where they do a lot of reports and some of the
Sure.
presentations that I guess for those of us that work for the county,
The nerds.
the inner workings of it, we see them regularly at meetings, but I guess that's not something that the average person who's going about their day necessarily is aware of.
Mhm.
So again, maybe it's reaching out to Racine County it's reaching out to the local newspapers and saying, what do people want to know about? What can we share that we do?
One of the things that Heather and I have been talking a lot about is hosting some community conversations around housing and immigration and talking about healthcare and all of those things that we want communities to have, and helping people understand what is there are some of the challenges, but also what are some of the solutions that are coming out of policy that we need to talk about and understand. Because as you know, because you're sitting at those meetings just like we are, some of these things are complicated. It's not an easy like band-aid or a fix, but people need to really kind of sit in with it and understand things, I think, a little better. So we've been talking about having these community discussions around this and bringing people, subject matter experts in to really have access for people to understand. So those are some of the things.
Okay, again, another avenue to do that kind of messaging, and also to get feedback.
Right.
I mean, not because government is meant to be working on behalf of its citizens and its residents.
Right.
And if we're doing something completely contradictory to what our community really wants or needs, again, maybe that's where, you look at, okay, we're doing this, but nobody really cares. Nobody's utilizing it. Maybe this is where you reduce something, but we really want to focus on this other piece.
So what are some of the priorities that you have? I know you talked about public safety, but what other things do you want to accomplish?
Well, again, we need to maintain our public safety. I agree with economic growth and development, and I like to include the growth part because I want our businesses that are here to be able to continue to thrive and grow and employ people, and again, provide those goods and services that our people that live here also are seeking. Development, again, it's great to have a new building and new companies come in.
But we have existing businesses.
But we have existing businesses,
small, medium, and large.
Right. And again, maybe we work with our partners in those development agencies to, again, help piece. They've got this product that the big company needs, but maybe they're not aware of each other, that the resources is available more locally for. Again,
I like that. I think what people don't realize, and people who don't own a business maybe don't think about this, but this is something as a business owner I've become aware of, and Denise and I have talked about this a lot. Just for the record, I do not own Racine County. I have my own business on the side. Anywho, I just didn't want confusion. This is Denise's job. She's the queen here. Okay. But really the fastest way to growth and success is through collaboration and partnership, right?
Right.
And so, like, through workforce development, the county could create events. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, but I think that that's a really good point that you're making, is that how do we connect a small business, and by small, I mean a micro business that has 10 or fewer employees, with potentially a larger company where there could be some synergy, right?
And one of the things that, just to kind of sidetrack just for a second, but there's a really big reason why I'm saying this, is that it's like, even like during the elections, we had the capacity, because of the professional organization I belong to have like the Associated Press content on my site, because the professional organization brokered that through a fellowship with the Night News Foundation. So we had access to something big, even though we're small, right? So that kind of thinking, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Maybe Microsoft.
Maybe we could partner with the county to get that done.
Well, there's a thought.
Okay.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. But anywho, all right.
I think we should have an event like that.
I think we should. Okay. Anywho.
Sorry.
So look at Wendy, see what you did for us? Look at, there we go.
Well, again, sometimes just having conversations.
Yeah.
Sitting around, getting to know people.
Yeah.
Talking about, oh, well, what about this? And you do start to brainstorm a little bit. You think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah.
I used to hate that phrase.
I know.
But sometimes, again, just having those conversations, somebody's got a little light bulb of something that, well, what about this? And then maybe you follow that rabbit hole a little further
Right,
because
right.
it turns into something else.
Well, because a lot of times these conversations are really just people thinking out loud, right? And so you're thinking out loud, Denise is thinking out loud. We're thinking, oh, well, what about this? And then you do start to go down that road and you think about how dots can be connected, right? And that's never a bad thing, right? It's always a good thing. And so,
But I think, do you guys think that, like, isn't Racine County really good at that? Like, we have this manufacturing mindset, and one of the things that I think is really interesting from a historical perspective is, like, when you think about all of the manufacturing that has happened here, and the reason why it happened was because everybody else was on each other's boards. So, like, you had the
That's a good
fellows
point.
from Hamilton Beach.
Yep. With S.C.
Right.
Johnson,
Yeah,
with Twin Disc,
so-
with Modine, with
so
Right.
Andis,
you have
right?
this
Like,
technology that was shared, and this,
Well, and you have some innovative minds.
yeah,
And again,
figure it out, people.
mentoring, helping each other, or again, building those relationships where I don't know about XYZ, but I know someone who does.
right,
And knowing that, I can call Bob or Susie,
right.
saying, okay, I don't understand this. Will somebody break it down? Or can you give, would you share some information with me? I think
Yeah.
that information sharing is, again,
Huge.
having those, you might not always know the person,
Mm-hmm.
but you might know someone that can get you on a path. Well, this person knows this person, and
Yeah,
person number 2 doesn't have an answer, but I know who you should call. It's this business down the street.
yeah, that's a good point. And that actually brings us to our next question.
Hey,
I love segue. So the proposed county budget is bringing down funding for some of the nonprofits that the county has traditionally supported. So how would you work to support those community organizations that play critical roles for public welfare and security?
Again, we have to, do we have the dollars to spend? I can share with you that there was just a ARPA committee meeting notice that was put out earlier today, where they are looking at some potential additional funding for a group.
hey, news.
Oh, news, breaking news here during Coffee with Candidates.
I love this.
So what does that mean? What is it? Can you explain a little bit, like what the point of all that is?
I have not read the resolutions in and of themselves. It was something that was actually brought up very briefly, and I don't remember if it was actually, I think it was during the county board meeting, but it was not something I specifically took a note on.
Okay.
I think to reallocate some of those, and I think that's what they're looking at doing, that some of the other things that we've done projects have, some things have come in under.
So using that excess, where the project
Right.
ended up and what was budgeted. That
Yeah.
kind of
Right,
stuff.
that little bit of a gap.
Sure.
I'll call it leftover money. I don't want to call it leftover, but
that's really kinda
leftover
what it is.
leftover from the
Yeah.
budget. I think they're looking at allocating that to some of the nonprofits whose funding was cut
Okay.
in the 2025 budget.
Okay.
Now, that has not been approved. That's got to go through the process of the committee and before the board and get
Sure.
approval. So it's still in process, but literally that ARPA committee
Okay.
meeting notice was just distributed earlier today.
Gotcha. That's
So.
great. Okay.
So, are there, when you look at or think about what you would like to accomplish with regards to if you get this position, right? At the end of a return, what would you want to have accomplished?
That we've grown our community and more people are working, more people are safe and living here, and that we've done something good.
Okay. So define something good.
I'm going to go back to the mental health.
Okay.
I think that's a topic that has, I don't want to say a topic that's grown. I think the need has grown. Huge. Not only because of some of the drugs that are coming into the, in with the fentanyl and the things we aren't seeing before. I just think there has been an increase in mental health awareness.
Mhm.
I think there's been an increase in mental health crisis and need, and I feel that more people are willing to address it or talk about it than in the past, but probably still not enough.
Mhm.
And I was having a conversation when I was out and about with a family I had met, and we were talking about my running for county executive and some of the things that I would like to see again. I know Jonathan was a champion of the behavioral health system and mental health. I have personally known people that have had issues or families that have dealt with it. Again, it's an expanding problem, but people are willing to talk about it.
Mhm.
And we need more people to be willing to talk about it. I don't know. I don't have a good understanding, and maybe I haven't had the right discussions with the right people to understand why this seems to be expanding, or is it just that we are more aware that there are more people that are
Yeah.
having issues?
There's a
So right
couple of
now,
different things
yeah. So
going
right
on.
now, the Racine County Jail is the #1 mental health facility in the county. That's a fact.
And a lot of that is tied to, over the years, the hospital system, like back in 2013, I think we had 65 inpatient beds.
Right. We had
Now
more.
we have like
10.
Right.
very small.
Yeah.
But one of the kickers is they used to have what's called a psychiatric intensive care unit. And that's where you would go to detox if you were suicidal, and so
Mhm.
you had a place to go for somebody who was having a really, really bad day. And what also was going on is Kenosha County has no mental health hospital. So you had an infrastructure that was dwindling in services. And in between Racine and Kenosha counties, I think they total about 350,000. I think Kenosha County is 150, 160,000.
People,
Oh,
not beds.
that means that only 6 to 10 people can have a really bad day of those two
Right.
counties.
And if you have more than that who have a really bad day,
Right. And
unfortunately, because I can't tell you how many criminal complaints I read
yeah.
where it's let's say it's a parent calling in for their adult child
Yeah.
who is off their meds and having
A
the
really
bad day, right?
right.
But because we don't have that mental health facility, the police, their only option is to put them in jail,
Yeah.
where at least they can take away the things that they might harm themselves
Right.
or others, right? The problem, of course, is that neither police officers nor corrections officers are trained, and nor should they be. They are not
Well,
psychologists.
I
They
would
are
push
not.
back just a little bit because there's been a big movement in crisis intervention training. And
They're still in
no, that's for sure. But I mean, there's a lot of de-escalation.
I get that. You're absolutely right. But what I'm
De-escalation.
saying is that they're not
Yeah.
psychological professionals, right?
Yeah.
Where
They're not long term. They're not going to sit with you for days on end.
right, they're
Right.
not going to conduct
Right.
your counseling. They're not going to make sure you're getting your
Right.
medication. Like
And that's hard.
Right. And if we only have 10 beds here, then sometimes, unfortunately, if it's someone that has done some harm to themselves,
Yeah.
now they're waiting in a hospital when they really need to be in a treatment facility of some kind,
Correct.
and they're looking for a location, and sometimes it's not anywhere local. It's 2
Winnebago.
counties away.
Yeah.
Winnebago, yeah.
Or
Dane or
Waukesha
wherever,
or something, which
Yeah.
again can make it more challenging for the family to
Right.
try and help the individual.
Right, because how can they get there, right?
Right.
I feel
and it's not just people that maybe have transportation issues that don't have a car or don't drive. It's
Right.
it's the distance, it's the time, it's the the
Right.
ability to interact.
There's been so much work on this, and ironically, Jonathan, I knew Jonathan very, very well, and so Jonathan and I would talk quite a bit about this because his roommate in college was my husband's uncle, and so yeah, if you want
The world is a very small place.
It's only 3 degrees of separation.
I know.
Yeah.
But so like Jonathan and I would talk a lot about this issue because, you know, I knew he was so passionate about it, but also he understood the value of helping people through that bad day. That because that bad day happened didn't define who
Yeah. It's
your
not
value,
who you are as a
right?
person, right?
I also believe, and I'll be honest, I have not had a personal conversation with her, but I did read it in the local paper, that I know our district attorney has also talked about wanting to work to create some other types of diversion programs,
Yeah.
like the veterans court that we have, the drug treatment. Maybe, I don't know. And again, I'm talking without a lot of knowledge,
I get it.
but
the
again,
fact
an
is that it's
idea,
sparking the idea, right?
perhaps that is also one of the avenues that
for sure.
that would be something maybe we would work together to look at. Is that an avenue? And again, I don't have the answers to say we'll go from A to B to C, but is that an area where perhaps a diversion court of some kind would work? But what does that look like? What can we legally do? What obviously we want the outcome to be that whoever is having the crisis gets through
the help they need.
that really bad day,
Yeah.
and gets put on a better path
Yeah.
going forward. And again, what that looks like might be different things for different people.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of Jonathan, you worked closely with him. Did you feel called to run for Racine County Executive because of that relationship?
Maybe a tiny bit.
Okay.
And not many people do not know that it was something I had been thinking about prior to Jonathan's death.
Okay.
It actually goes back to when he was in my office filing his nomination papers for this last term.
Okay.
And many people know he said this was, he was planning for this to be his last term.
Yeah.
And I was teasing with him at the time. I said, yeah, we'll see. Because I thought 4 years, a lot of things can happen in 4 years.
Absolutely.
You could be in the middle of, some projects that you're really passionate about and decide, I'm not quite done.
Yeah.
I'm not quite done. So, that's kind of where I left it. But in the back of my mind, there was a little thought, would I be interested at some point in the future?
Mm-hmm.
Would I be up to the challenge? Would I want to take on a different role? Would I be willing to do that? And that was kind of all it was a little thought in the back of my mind. Obviously not knowing where we are now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Having lost our friend.
Is 3 out of the 4 candidates work for the county. Lorenzo works for the county. Melvin works for the county.
You work for the
Wendy
county.
works for the county.
Ralph does not.
Ralph does not.
Interesting.
I thought so too.
Yeah. Well, so last question. This is a little bit. Where's your face? Okay, so last question is, Racine County is a very diverse population. I would say almost it feels like 2 different counties, west of the I and east of the I, to me.
Pretend that interstate isn't there.
I don't think you can though, right? Like, I mean, it is like it's like 2 different. It feels
almost like a wall. And Jonathan and I, we actually talked about that once.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. That's
it does feel like once you're like, especially if you're in Washington Avenue, right? You're like, I'm in Racine, now I'm in Mount Pleasant, and now I'm not, right? Like you cross that under the bridge and there you are. But because Racine County is a diverse and disparate in a lot of ways population, right? We have disparate populations. Like, how, as the Racine County Executive, can you approach issues of diversity, both diversity, equity, and inclusion, both within operations and the populations that the county serves?
We look for the best candidates, and they come from all walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean candidates in terms of political or elected job applicants.
Yeah.
As far, we encourage our workforce to look like our community.
Yeah.
As it should.
Mm-hmm.
There's a array of people They look different. They have different religions. They come from different backgrounds. They have different educational levels. And again, we have all of that within our workforce as well. And you want to share that with the broader community. Again, whether it's some of those pipelines to encourage employment, again, in all types of jobs.
Yeah.
You know, we want our community to thrive in all ways.
All right. Well, if we're done with our questions.
Was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yes, if you want to, please feel free to speak directly to the people about why you feel like you would make the best county executive.
Okay. I have spent 32 years working in public service for the residents of our community, and I feel I can give a little more. That's the inspiration from Jonathan. He inspired people to want to do a little bit more.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, thank you. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you taking the time to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Okay, so I'm going to go do my tech job and turn off the camera.
Okay.
Really classy operation.
We are.